Greg, how are you, man?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm excellent. I looked on IMDb today, and I saw that Mortal Kombat was your first screenplay credit. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, first produced credit, for sure. I've been slugging away at this thing for over a decade. So finally, this is the first one to get made.
That's crazy. How long have you been writing for?
As a professional screenwriter, I would say about 11 years, 11, 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the great myth of being a professional screenwriter, is that you immediately get tons of movies made.
Right. So over the course of making a film, as we all know, so many changes happen from the script to the screen. If you're able to share anything, what major changes happen, or what's the major differences between the script that you wrote and the final product?
One really cool thing that I experienced on this project was that they stayed very true to the script. And you never know as a writer going into this whether or not they're going to just blow up a whole bunch of stuff and kind of go their own way. But there were many, really down to pretty much the structure of the script has been brought over to the film in a really clean and awesome way. I will say, the one thing that I never expect is when they make the movie and all of these talented people come in and they take everything that you wrote and make it about 4 billion times cooler than you could possibly imagine.
Right.
So you can write a fight scene in Final Draft, and then all of a sudden you see that put together by an incredible, team of choreographers and visual effects artists, and it just elevates it to another level.
Were you a fan of the game? Did you play it a lot as a kid?
Oh my goodness, dude. I mean, I had a bowling alley where I lived, and they had an arcade there. Mm-hmm. So every day after school, I'd go down, and it was the MK2 machine, and I would just sit there for hours. I mean, I had to be pulled away at a certain point just to get my ass off that machine, because I would just sit there playing King of the Hill. I don't know if you remember if you went to the arcades, but that's what it was. You would sit on the machine with your quarter up there. Yeah. And anybody, could come beat me.
Yeah, I definitely grew up in the Street Fighter 2 Mortal Kombat era of stacking your quarters and whatnot. What were the challenges for you? I'm sorry, I'm looking down at my notes sometimes. What were the challenges of adapting a video game that's so well beloved by so many people?
Getting it right. Not angering the fans. No, I think the biggest challenge was we wanted to be really faithful. We wanted to be really true to the games. That's taking on a lot, and it's a big mission statement. Mm-hmm. We wanted people that love these games, that grew up loving these games, to watch it and just have a big smile on their face the entire time. Just seeing things, pulling out things and just calling back to all these wonderful things from the games. I mean, we tried really hard. And I know maybe everybody that says they adapt a video game did that, but I'm going to tell you, it was pretty much one of the biggest mission statements was, let's be faithful.
Right. And what inspired the introduction of Cole into the story? Because there's a lot of Mortal Kombat characters. That was my first question when I saw the trailer, was how come we're making a new character when Mortal Kombat itself has a bajillion characters to pull from?
Yeah, and actually that's part of the answer, right? So what we wanted to do was we wanted to create a character that feels unique, and it allows us to bring something new to the story. Mm-hmm. One of the things we discussed at the beginning, and I agreed with this, was that nobody wanted to just remake what we'd already seen, right. To put a bunch of characters on a boat again and send them to the island. It's like, guys, we can try to be more original than that, and we can try to bring something new to the table. So what I wanted to do as the writer is I wanted to use the new protagonist and find a way to tie him into the mythology in a way that feels organic. Mm-hmm. So that it's not just a fish out of water. It's not just a character that's thrown in there. It's a character that has a real role in the story. And when you see the film, you'll realize that character is actually really intrinsic to other characters that you know and love coming into that world.
How much research did you have to do in writing it? Or were you just completely going off of, I grew up with this thing, I know the lore in and out?
It was pretty insane how much I didn't have to research this. I could just go back and draw from the things that I love. You'll see, as fans are watching the trailer, the trailer recently came out, they're pulling up things and they're putting screenshots between the game and the movie, and they're seeing they're virtually identical.
Right.
And so what I did was I pulled from a lot of the things that I loved throughout the canon, from Mortal Kombat 1 all the way through 11. And, there were certain times where we had some really deep mythology stuff that I had to go back and check, because I also wanted to make sure I got it right. Yeah. There's so much mythology to keep track of. So I wanted to make sure that we weren't missing or screwing things up. So I would say I went back a little bit, but really it's just pulling from passion. It's just pulling from that love.
Did you ever see the Mortal Kombat short films that were on YouTube?
Yeah, I did.
Did those have any inspiration in your writing or any influence at all?
I went back and watched them a few years ago just to see what they did, and I really appreciated the direction and the different approach that they took to the source material. But I think ultimately with the film, while we're we're just like they did. While we're pulling from certain aspects of the canon, we wanted this to stand on its own. We wanted this to feel new, exciting. We wanted to feel for today's world, 2021 big action movie. And thankfully we had a bigger budget. We were able to do a lot more with it.
In the course of writing it, where you're like, I can't do this because they did that in the original Mortal Kombat film that came out in the 90s. Like, was there any you comparing or competing with that film in your mind in the course of writing it? Like,
I love that movie. I was there opening night, Friday opening night. I was 15 years old, so it was just like that adolescent, just pure dream come true,
right.
Coming out of the theater doing jump kicks. So I loved it, but at the same time, it's like that movie exists, and it would feel disingenuous for me to just start pulling things and being like, hey, let's just take these things out of the movie. But what I will say is, because I love that movie and because we are a reboot, right? We're not a remake, we're a reboot.
Yeah.
There is a lot of little nods, and there's a lot of kind of fun things that I took from that movie, things that people love.
Yeah.
And so when you watch it, if you're a fan of the original movie, you'll be like, I remember that, or that was a callback to the original film. And maybe one of the biggest things that people love about that original film, you may see as well, or should I say hear as well. So we'll see.
Yeah.
You'll have to wait and see. I
got to watch the movie last night, so I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
If there's another installment of the game, will it piggyback on this film at all?
I hope so. I hope so. I think we're just trying like anything else, just to continue to expand that universe, just to build out that universe and try to, make it feel larger. So if NetherRealm feels like they wanna take some of what we did, that would be really exciting. I guess it's really up to them.
Yeah. Was it difficult? Because I'm sure you have your favorite characters in Mortal Kombat. Was it difficult not giving too much fan service to those characters that you love so much?
It's tough. It's a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
The thing that the challenge of writing this film was that we were thrown right into Avengers mode. I didn't have the chance to set up all of these characters in their own specific movies. We were just boom right into ensemble. So, and I only have a certain amount of time to do it. So what I wanted to try to make sure was that every time we got a character, every time we met one of those new characters, that they had enough time to shine, that they got their cool moments, that they got their good fight scenes, and we got hopefully enough character development to make them work. But in doing that and making those choices, there's hard choices you have to make too. And the hardest choice you had to make was, how many characters can we fit in this movie without doing them a disservice? And ultimately, what characters should we save? Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that I had to decide. And it all came down to story, really. That was the reason. I love Katana. She's one of my favorite characters, right? And it's a character that I would have, obviously seen the trailer. Obviously, she's not in the trailer. It's a character that I love, but it's also a character I want to do right. And so, that was an example of character where we had to scale back, just because I felt like there's a better opportunity to do it. And let's wait for the right opportunity to make sure we do that character justice. And that's what it's all about. It's about trying to find ways to do those characters justice in the amount of screen time that we have.
I don't remember the actor's name, but the guy who played Kano, did he do any improvisation off of your script? I had suspected that maybe he did some improv.
Yeah, Josh Lawson, who played Kano, is a really gifted comedian. He's a really gifted improver. He would do the script, and then he would kind of throw in some fun, Will Ferrell, Anchorman style, things he thought of in the moment, off the cuff. And he adds a lot of humor and a lot of levity to it. Yeah. But I would drop lines that he dropped that I'm proud of because they were in the script, but maybe after the movie comes out, I can say which ones were actually written.
Well, speaking of comedy, was there any hesitation with that? Because this is, again, a beloved franchise. Did you have any fear or trepidation with adding in jokes and stuff like that?
No, because, Mortal Kombat has always been that kind of self-referential wink type of property. It's never really taken itself all that seriously. I mean, this is the game that gave you the ability to turn into animals and babies, turn your opponents into babies.
Right.
You finish them. I mean, it's got all sorts of kind of wonderful, irreverent humor in it. So it was actually the perfect tone for a video game for us to adapt, because I like having fun with my movies. I like watching them. I like having the stakes to be real. I like the characters and the emotion to be real, but I also want to smile. I want to laugh. I want to have a good time. And I always felt that that was a really nice balance between the violence and the kind of the brutality of this movie.
Right.
And then to also have the next scene where someone's just cracking a joke. Right. And that was important to kind of capture that tone, I think. And it's what's going to help, make the film unique.
If you had the power to do a standalone character Mortal Kombat film, who would you make a film about? So
not film, but I would love to do a spin-off series. Okay. And there's two that I would really love to do. One would be MK Shaolin Monks, which is something that I would love to do. I would love to go and explore Kung Lao, Liu Kang, the upbringing behind those characters, all those kind of great characters that they met along that journey. I think there's a real opportunity to dig more into that story. And the other story that I kind of really like is to dig into MK Special Forces, because I think there's a lot of really interesting stories and things to tell on that track as well. If you see the movie, Sonya and Jax, it's in the trailer, so I can speak to it. I mean, like, Sonya and Jax are already together. They're already formed. They're already trying to figure out what's the mystery is behind Mortal Kombat. Yeah. But there's a lot of history before that, leading up to that, where the two of them have been investigating these things. I just think there's a really kind of interesting world to explore there and be able to flesh out those characters even more.
That is not the answer I was expecting at all. That's so interesting. Because based on the film, I was expecting it to be SubZero and Scorpion. Like more, because
that's another great one too.
Because like watching the film, like that was my biggest takeaway. Those characters were so compelling. Like you set it up really, really, really well with SubZero at the top and the beef between them. I was like, oh my God, it would be cool to see a film that would just go into that more and the history there and whatnot and why they have that with each other.
Yeah, I know. And by the way, that's another really great avenue. Someone else that has seen the film also has said, I would love to hear more about how Bi-Han became Bi-Han. What was that backstory between those two clans and how did it start there? And if you have a 4-hour movie, I would have loved to have. If I could do a Snyderverse, I would have loved to have gone back and explored all of that stuff. It's just part of it. It's part of the trick of trying to do it in that amount of time. But yeah, that was important to me and everyone involved. That, and it didn't. It was something that I had to. I worked really hard on in my drafts and the work that I did, because I was on this movie for the last 4.5 years. So yeah. A lot of that stuff, a lot of that SubZero Scorpion stuff is stuff that I really wanted to put in there, and I got in there myself, not by myself, with a team of incredible filmmakers making it happen. But we wanted that to be important to the story. I talked to a lot of MK fans when I was writing it, and I said, what do you want to see? Like, what's the one thing you want to see? And almost everyone was like, I want to see Scorpion and SubZero go at it. Like, we never got that. The older films never gave us that, that story. And so,
Well, in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, we did see a little beef between SubZero and Scorpion, but the choice to make SubZero the villain, like, how did that come about? Because I've always thought SubZero was, like, between the ninjas, I thought he was actually the good guy and Scorpion was the bad guy, but here it was reversed and it was cool.
So Scorpion, you probably know that, SubZero, you probably know there's two brothers, right? There's two versions. The younger brother, Koay Lang, comes later. He is the one that fights more on the side of good. He's the one that joins the Heroes of Outworld. So just to make sure that we were doing it, temporally accurate to the canon, ours is Bi-Han. So Bi-Han is kind of a ruthless guy. He's always been a ruthless guy in the games. He's always been an assassin, who's just out there to serve the Lin Kuei and to forward his own agenda. He's kind of a murderous bastard. Yeah. So we felt that was within canon. We felt that there was precedent there to do that. And we also just loved the fact that we could dig into Scorpion being an anti-hero. And I think, to me, that's who Scorpion is. I think a lot of fans would agree. Like, Scorpion's like the perfect anti-hero. He kind of follows his own agenda as well. He wants revenge. He never really kind of, well, in later games, he does side with the Earthrealmers and at a certain point. But yeah, we just wanted to, I think, play with what was there in canon, but also set up this rivalry that we could really track. And it just felt natural that the older SubZero was going to be the menacing force of this film. Yeah. And Joe Taslim, God, he was just built for that.
Yeah, I agree. Oh. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really, really appreciate your time. And I know that you have so many interviews you're doing, so I appreciate the energy that you're giving to this one. So
thank you, man. I really love your channel. I love your content. Thanks for having me so much.
Thank you. All right. Take care, man.